my road to the ICS is sort of I don't know. In some ways, I guess it's like some people would say it's an easy and a direct path. It seems sort of long and circuitous to me, but I guess that depends on your point of view. But I was starting all the way back. I was born and I grew up in a Christian Reformed church in Southern Ontario, right? So the ICS was kind of always in the background and always kind of around on our radar. I grew up going to Fenwick Bethany CRC in the Niagara area, a little bit outside of Niagara Falls. And so that was, and the ICS used to do those conferences regularly in Southern Ontario, and was like a large presence in the CRC world, but especially in Southern Ontario. And so it was always sort of there and in the background. I sort of knew of it. But it sort of, I finished high school. I went to Christian grade school, Christian high school. I went to Calvin College for my undergraduate degree. My last year at Calvin, they hired a new professor named James K.A. Smith. So his first year at Calvin was my last year at Calvin. And Jamie became sort of a mentor to me and sort of guided me into this sort of continental philosophy. And he really strongly encouraged me to go to the ICS when I upon graduation. And so I did, and I went and I studied for 2 years. I got a master's at the ICS, working with Jim Oltice, who was also Jamie's mentor. And then from there, I did 2 years there. I got a master's degree there, and I got my MR degree. I got married while I was at the ICS to an ICS student as well. And so from there, I went to Boston College. I got my PhD at Boston College, working with Richard Carney, who's again in this continental philosophy of religion sort of world, which is a lot of what I do. And so I was there I got my PhD from there. I did some adjuncting at Brock University back in Southern Ontario when I was finished that. And then I got I got a call. I was applying for jobs, and people in the field will know how this works. I applied for a bunch of jobs and didn't get anywhere, didn't even get any interviews. Except at Redeemer. Redeemer University had an opening, and I got an interview there, and I got an on-campus interview there, but then I didn't get the job, and I was like really disappointed and crushed because I was like, this would have been perfect. I'm from Southern Ontario. I was hoping to just stay there. I grew up on a dairy farm. I was going to build a house on the back of my parents' property, work at Redeemer. It was all planned out, and then I didn't get the job, and so then I was like crushed and disappointed, and so I sort of remember telling God, like, all right, like I've done all this work, God, and like I can't even get anywhere. I can't get a job. If you're so great, God, you find me a job, right? And then like literally like 2 weeks later, I get a call out of the blue on my office phone at Brock, which my wife is the only person as far as I know who has the number for that office. So I don't know how even they got this number, but I get a call at that office. Hello, this is Eric Hoekstra. I'm the provost at Dordt College. He's now the president, and it's now Dordt University, but I'm old, so this was a while ago. I'm the provost at Dordt College, and we have a sudden opening in philosophy, and we wonder if we heard, from Redeemer that you're looking for a position. We're wondering if you would be interested in taking this position at Dordt. And I did. We were about to have our first baby, so my wife was on maternity leave, and so we went down to Dordt initially for a 1-year gig. It went well, and they rehired me long term, and so I was there for 6 years. While I was there, I became the director of the Andrea Center for Reformed Scholarship and Service, and that really helped me sort of, stay connected to these reformational roots. Working a lot with Doyeweird is a lot of who I work with. Doyeweird, and then I work with contemporary phenomenology is the kind of philosophy that I do. So it's sort of where those two things come together. And so after I was at the Andrea Center, I founded a website called In All Things. Myself and Liz Moss and a few other people at Dordt were instrumental in getting that up and running and off the ground. It's kind of an online hub for thinking through the implications of Jesus and the lordship of Jesus over all parts of creation. That's what's called In All Things. How do we see God at work in all things, not just in some parts of our life, but in all things, right? And so by the time I left Dordt, and left In All Things in the Andrea Center, that website was getting 10,000 unique visitors a month. So it was really doing something really great and interesting and exciting, and we were super happy about that. But then I got another call from King's University. Hank Bessman gave me a call, and they were looking for a Canada Research Chair position in phenomenology, continental philosophy of religion, and reformational thought. And so several people, including Jamie Smith, had given them my name as someone they might want to talk to. And so they did, and I interviewed there, and I ended up getting the job there. So I went to King's, and I was at King's for 6 years as well. Uh, the last 5 of which I was in this role of Canada Research Chair. So that gave me an opportunity to do a lot of research, both academic research. I got a book published and edited a couple of books academically doing that, but also sort of public outreach, doing public lectures and public talks. I did several of those at King's and at various churches and with other churches across BC and Alberta, and into Saskatchewan as well. And so doing a lot of work there. And then yeah, along the way, like I mentioned this, so I got married when I was at the ICS. We had our first child right before we moved to Dort and into Iowa. We had our second child while we were in Iowa, and so now we live in Edmonton. My wife teaches at Strathcona Christian Academy, which is a Christian grade school and high school. She teaches in the high school art and English out here in Sherwood Park, just outside of Alberta. My kids are, my son Hendrik is 13. My daughter Frankie is 11. So we live out here. But yeah, the position came up at ICS, and I was super excited to apply for it. Yeah, kind of a homecoming of sorts after sort of a bit of a long journey around, but happy to be back at the ICS. I was on the board of the ICS for a few years while I was down in Dort as well. So then I stepped off Dort and no, not Dort. ICS and King's were having some talks about working together in partnerships, and I was at King's by the time that was happening, and then I was in conflict of interest on both sides, so I couldn't be part of those conversations at all. And that wasn't helping anybody. So then I had to come off the board of ICS so that I could help kind of with getting that work done and through. And so now I'm happy to be back at the ICS and sort of back involved again with the place that is in a lot of ways an intellectual home for me, and really sort of started me on this journey, both directly through my time there, but also indirectly through shaping Jamie Smith, who was a really big influence and continues to be a large influence on me, and sort of shaped my thought and sort of what I think and what I do and how I approach philosophy and how I approach life and how I approach the world.